Hey everybody, it's Professor Norwood, and this is actually take two of this lecture. I realized I had some audio issues on the playback of the one I recorded earlier, so I will be replacing it with this one. All right. And first, I just wanted to show you all the week 13 module and all of its contents. You guys, you've been working on your your proposals, and I've read the ones that were submitted. And for the most part, we're ready to go. We're ready to start rolling with our paper. So be sure to get started on your draft as soon as possible if you haven't started already. And that's really what this recording is going to be about. Just some strategies for how to one, how to get started on your essay, and then two, what to do, how to structure your essay once you actually get started. All right, so I'm in the week 13 module. Yeah, I can't believe I think we may be in week 12. I'm not exactly sure, but we're in the drafting the research paper module. Wow, there's only a couple weeks left. All right, and this is just a quick video from one of my esteemed colleagues, Sharon Sicilian, who's primarily out of the Auburn Hills campus. Great instructor though. Here's some slides that I will cover. Here's a video of this morning's recording that I will be removing shortly and replacing it with this one. Structuring arguments, paragraphing examples, and tips. I'll go over that as well. And then finally, at the bottom, is just some additional MLA resources about formatting your paper, and then how to cite your material properly. All right, so be sure to review that material along with this video recording, and don't forget your textbook is also a great resource for putting together arguments. All right, so here we go, back for the first time. All right, so this is the academic argument slide and or slideshow, and I won't go through all of these slides because we some of this stuff is material that we've already covered as far as when we did our proposals. So here it is. All right. So this is just a quick recap of what an actual academic argument consists of. First, it deals with the debatable issue, and for the most part, all of the proposals I read, well, I would say most of the proposals I read were on a debatable topic. But if I sent you a little note in D2L saying that you need to adjust your topic just a little bit to make it arguable, then please do so. All right. Academic argument is definitely based on reason and research. Do not, bring your own experiences into this essay. And again, I believe, we're not operating in that realm for this essay. Your reader wants to know, what you can prove, what you can use to sustain your argument. And I have here logos, as appeal to logos. It really just it's an appeal to logic. All right, we just got fancy in Latin real quick. All right, but didn't mean to slide that quick. All right. Yeah, logos is just an appeal to logic. All right. And academic arguments also written for a professional academic or school audience. Academic and school audience are kind of the same thing. All right. But this one, just make sure you're using the most effective words to reach your audience. All right. Um, you don't want your tone to be too conversational in an essay of this nature, only because you want to be taken seriously, right, by your audience. And you can't do that if there's elements of slang and things of this nature in your essay. And this isn't to say that you can't be yourself when you write, but again, just be mindful of your audience. All right. And right now you can consider your audience as an audience of your peers, meaning we're critical thinkers. All right. And we're an audience of scholars. So I think that's the audience you should aim for. So just be mindful of that when you're presenting your material. All right. Does not solely rely on appeals to ethos and pathos. Ethos just means an appeal to ethics, or it says to your audience, I am trustworthy. All right. And that's an important part of, writing an audience, or excuse me, writing an argument. You have to establish that trust with your audience, meaning one, you're going to use credible sources. That is a great way to establish trust. And then two, and this is maybe something that we can take for granted, but you establish your trustworthiness by proofreading your work. Okay. Your reader's not going to trust you if you're using there, and if you're misusing there, and there, or, if there's typos just throughout your paper. All right. They aren't going to trust you because the thinking is, well, this person doesn't know the difference between there, and there. Why should I believe anything they say? All right. And then pathos is an appeal to emotion, which certainly has its place in argument. Okay. An appeal to your audience's emotion. And the thinking behind that is we make decisions with both our hearts and minds. All right. And if this is why elected officials, right, they present some data and then they may tell a story. All right, to sort of get that blend of pathos and logos. All right, but the danger of relying too much on pathos or emotional appeal is your reader, and we have to consider them as critical readers. They're going to say, okay, you pulled my heartstrings, but now where's the evidence, right? So try to find that balance of emotional appeal. All right, the same thing with pathos. I mean, with ethos. Of course, you do want to be credible to your audience, but at the same time, we can't say to our audience, believe this because it's me. All right. So try to strike that balance of ethos, pathos, logos. Again, ethos is just credibility or you establishing a trust um, with your audience, and pathos is emotional appeal. All right, and then logos is an appeal to logic. All right, you will learn more about these terms in English 1520. But they're just Latin terms for appeal to ethics, logic, and emotion. All right. Make sure your ideas are based on evidence. I can't stress that enough. Okay. You must provide evidence. And really it's kind of like being in a court of law when they say, the burden of proof is on you. That's how we should approach our writing. And even on some of your proposals, I wrote, be prepared to prove this idea or be prepared to show your audience how this is true. All right. So evidence from credible sources is a must for this project. All right. And it can really determine the outcome of your argument. All right. Make sure you document all of your research using MLA citation style guidelines and, last name, page number for your in-text citation. If there are no page numbers, last name will suffice. If you can't find the author, a shortened version of the title of the piece that you're using will work as well. All right. But again, you must cite material if it comes from an outside source. If you don't cite it, that can be construed as plagiarism. And sometimes I get plagiarism is unintentional, but you also have to keep in mind that not every instructor or every person in your audience is going to make that distinction. For a lot of folks, plagiarism is plagiarism. All right. Be sure to take, opposing viewpoints into consideration as well. And that's how craft a well-rounded argument. All right. A well-rounded argument. What are you going to say, to the opposition, right? Or when folks disagree with you, what's your response going to be? Okay. If your understanding is, that college athletes should be paid, what are you going to say when, people say that, they already get paid with scholarships, right? What's your response to that? All right. So think about, whatever your argument is. Okay. And for the record, I do think, college athletes should be paid. All right. And then make sure you take time in planning. All right. You got about a week to put your rough draft together. And I think if we work on it every day, there's plenty of time. And when I say work on it every day, some days that could be, just getting a couple paragraphs together. Some days that can be just rereading what you have and then making some revisions. But try to contribute something to your essay every day. It's a lot less stressful than waiting until the 11th hour to get your work together. And then you may get to that moment and say, man, I only have a few pages worth of material here. All right, which sometimes happens. All right, and I think it's best to have that realization earlier, sooner than later, so to speak. So don't put that kind of pressure on yourself to wait until the last minute. And sometimes people will say, well, I work better under pressure, but truth is, sometimes we say that because we've only allowed ourselves to work under pressure. So take the time you need. Okay, take the time you need. There's about 3 full weeks left in the semester, and I think if we utilize that time wisely, that'll be plenty of time to put an essay of this nature together. All right. Oh yeah, thesis statements. I know you were to have a working thesis in your proposal that you submitted, but again, in your paper, make sure your thesis statement is clear. All right. Um, Make sure it communicates your idea clearly, and then make sure you're using the right words to communicate this idea most effectively. You don't have to make it like overly fancy or overly complex. Really, just say what you mean, right? What do you want me, not me, the instructor, but me, anonymous member of your audience, what do you want me to accept? Like, what's the idea you want me to accept? Okay. And, say it as clearly as possible. All right. Say it as clearly as possible. Another point that I want, or another aspect of your thesis statement that we should work on is um, just trying to stay away from vague terms like many ways, right? you know, increasing tuition affects college students in many ways. It does. That's true. But what are some of these ways? Okay, try to incorporate some of those in your thesis statement. One, it's going to help you stay organized as a writer, but two, it really prepares your reader for what's to come in the essay. So try to make your thesis statement as clear and as specific as you can. Okay. And here are some example thesis statements. Some of them are effective and some of them are not. All right. And I'll give you the reasoning. All right. Aquafina is the best brand of bottled water. Okay. Off the top, we know that one's not effective. Why? Because it's very hard to prove anything is the best anything. All right. Why? Because the best, it's such a vague term, right? That can mean anything depending on how you or depending on who you ask. So try to stay away from like this is better than that, type thesis statements. All right. Americans should not drink bottled water because it is wasteful, expensive, and not any healthier than tap water. Okay. Now we're on to something. One, we propose an idea. Americans should not drink bottled water. And then we gave them some reasons. Wasteful, expensive, not any healthier than tap water. All right. And this thesis statement, it will work because one, like I said, it proposes that idea. It gives you the reason and it gives you the reasons. Also, it gives you a plan of development, meaning it lays out your reasons in the order that you can discuss them in your paper. So this can, help you stay, a thesis statement like this can help you stay organized. Access access to free and clean water should be available for all the world's citizens. Absolutely. All right. This one could work in theory if our paper was longer, but if we were going with this idea, maybe this one could be limited to a certain region of the world. Now, in principle, of course, free and clean water, there's a good argument that that's a human right. But for a 5-page paper, maybe this is too broad. So maybe this can be narrowed down a bit more. And then this final one, 3.4 million people die every year from water-related illnesses. Not really a good thesis statement. Why? Because easily verifiable. Okay, it was 3.4 million at the time these slides were put together. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less now, but that's irrelevant because whether it's 3.4 million, 3 million, we can look that up. So if your thesis statement is a statement of fact, you really don't have anywhere to go from there. Okay, it's going to be a very short paper. So try to, again, a debatable claim. Americans should not drink bottled water. Free and clean water is a human right. Okay. So think about your thesis statement, as you put your draft together. And I think most importantly, make sure it clearly states the main idea of your essay. If you were to be asked, what's your paper about? The answer to that question, or really the only answer to that question, is your thesis statement. Okay. Again, if you're asked, what's your paper about, and your answer starts off with, well, basically, okay, your thesis statement needs to be clarified then. If, well, basically, or it's somewhat about, all right, just make sure your thesis is clear. Okay. Most of the proposals, I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide because I think we're beyond this point. But most of the, or if not all of the proposals I read, the arguments fell into two categories: position arguments and proposal arguments. A position argument just says, here's this pre-existing issue, and here's where I stand on this issue. Here's my position on this issue. All right. And a proposal argument says, here's this problem that exists, and here's what should be done about it. Okay. So position arguments are just that. They take a position on an issue. All right. No matter what the issue is, whether it's, since we're talking about tuition, you could take a position on increased tuition, the electoral college, whatever. All right. And then proposal arguments say, here's this problem and here's what should be done about it. All right. And again, most of the arguments that you guys made with your proposals fell into one of those two categories. So we're fine in that regard. All right. And again, this is stuff we've already covered. So we've already chosen a topic that interests us. And then I do want to spend just a few moments on these next 2 points, and they're really kind of they go hand in hand. All right, but one of the reasons we began with an annotated bibliography is just for this point. Get to know the conversation around your topic. Okay, who are the leading thinkers? Meaning, if I want to know something about your topic, right? Who would you refer me to? Okay, who are the experts in the field? All right, in your reader's mind, you're the expert. All right, when they see your name on your paper, again, which is more reason to know about your topic. Okay, but look at who's in support of your idea when you're doing your research, and then look at who opposes you. All right, and that way you can develop your counter argument. Okay, if you already have an idea of what the other side is thinking. So familiarize yourself with what has been said about your topic and prepare to enter the conversation with your writing. So in some ways, we're coming full circle because we began this semester with a couple summary response essays where you read an article and then you inserted your own voice into that conversation. So we're doing the same thing here, just on a much bigger scale. All right. So, know about your topic, know what's being said about it. Okay. And then assess what you know and what you don't know about your topic, even if it's something that you're well versed in. Continue researching and try to fill in gaps in your knowledge base. All right. So in essence, try to know as much as you can about your topic. And again, this was part of my reasoning for, having you all choose your own topic. Okay. And then once you know it, develop your claim, which we've already done in your proposals. Okay. And this is just the same structure as your proposal. But again, just that formula again, claim, which is the main idea of your argument, okay, of your essay. You need that. All right. Then you need reasons. Okay. Then you need reasons. All right. Then you need evidence to support your reasons. Okay. And then you need a counter argument. Okay. So claim, reasons, evidence, counter argument, and then slide your conclusion in there, and you're okay. All right. This slide is really just, if you want to do some brainstorming, some further brainstorming beyond your proposal. But hopefully, you can use a proposal as a guide to get your essay together, especially those reasons. Audience awareness. Just be mindful again of who your argument is directed at. All right. And I know in your proposals, many of us um, had specific audiences we were targeting, and that's fine. But no matter your audience, keep in mind that your audience, just like we said before, rational but skeptical. Rational, they want to hear what you have to say. They're willing to listen to reason. Skeptical, not just going to believe you. Okay. Meaning they need some evidence. So keep that in mind as well. Also keep, the diversity of your audience in mind. Make sure you're using words they understand. And that goes for, field specific terminology, meaning if you're, writing a paper about, oh yeah, the military. All right, because I know there's a lot of military specific jargon. All right, if you're, writing a paper about, the military, or another field that uses specific, jargon, make sure you're defining these terms for your reader to let them be part of that discussion. And that's difficult to do if you're using words or even acronyms that they don't understand. All right, so make sure you're using the right words and the right tone to reach your audience. Again, like I said, you don't want your tone to be too conversational in your essay. Also, it's a little bit of humor is okay, but you don't want your entire paper to come off like that, because again, it's going to be hard to get your audience to take you seriously if you aren't showing them that you can be serious, or you aren't presenting valid information. And then finally at the end, or this last point, try presenting yourself as concerned, meaning you care about what you're writing about, well informed, you've done your research, and then fair. You acknowledge that there are other positions, but again, your goal is to get your audience to accept your claim, okay, as opposed to the opposition, or at least accept your claim as valid. All right, because you aren't going to be able to convince everybody. It's just the nature of things. Okay, here's just some material about research. All right, you can go through this on your own, but I think the main thing, and this goes back to our annotated bibliography, make sure you're reading through your own research critically. All right, and choose good sources to put in your essay. There, you may not incorporate every bit of research that you find into your essay. That's fine. That's fine. Again, like I stated before, it's always good to have more material than you will actually use. All right. So yeah, make sure you're conducting sufficient research. Okay. And don't mind these page numbers here. They're from a book I was using about 10,000 years ago. All right. But research hasn't changed all that much. Right. Now, my good people, good people. Okay. Plagiarism. Passing others' work off as your own. Okay, that's a short definition. Passing others' work off as your own. Okay. And sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. All right. And like I said before, some teachers will give you the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, take another shot at this. And then some teachers will just maybe won't even bring it up, they'll just give you a zero. All right. And possibly fill out an academic dishonesty report. That's something that stays with you. All right. And I think one of the best ways to avoid plagiarism is, planning. All right. A lot of times people plagiarize because, they wait to the last minute and then they hit the panic button and do something that is really outside of their character. But, it's like, man, I gotta turn something in. But I advise you, if you find yourself in that position, before you do something you'll regret, um, just contact your instructor. Okay, if it's me, say, hey, Professor Norwood, I'm really struggling with this paper. Is it possible I can have a few more days? Sure. All right. With this paper, we don't have much leeway for additional time because we're pushing it right up against the end of the semester. But if you're really struggling, just let me know. Okay, and we can work something out. All right. Anything is better than plagiarism. I'll say that. All right. So plagiarism consists of claiming credit for work that is not your own. The consequences can be dire, ranging from failure to legal repercussions. And yes, there can be legal repercussions because technically you are, using someone's intellectual property. all right, if the work is copywritten, like much of what you will find online is, all right, or a lot of what you will find online is, okay? Just avoid the following: deliberate plagiarism. One, I don't see much of these days, okay? Buying a paper online or from another student and passing it off as your own. Sometimes, you find a paper when we're face to face. I know our computer labs, students will often save their work on there. And if you log in, you can have access to their work. So sometimes people will do the old switcheroo. All right. All right. But whatever you do, okay, use your own work. All right. And this is one I see a lot: patch plagiarism. Not a lot, but when it comes to plagiarism, this is the most common kind I see. Patch plagiarism is, you got some of your own work, and then you have a couple lines that are from another source. All right, and then some of your own work, and then a paragraph from another source, and so on and so forth. So patch plagiarism is copying and pasting bits and pieces of online sources without acknowledging your source. Okay, nothing wrong with getting material from an outside source, but if you do, always provide a citation. Always acknowledge where this came from. All right, because again, okay, consequences could be dramatic for plagiarism. And with us, unfortunately, I've had to have that conversation with a few students privately, and for the most part, I gave do-overs, which is what I tend to do on the first time. But with this assignment, since we're so close to the end of the semester, there just isn't going to be much time for do-overs. So again, just make sure you can check your turn it in percentage, which I advise you to do. If you go beyond 20, it's time to make some adjustments. But really 10 to 15% is ideal for a research paper. All right. And if you're ever unsure about, whether something needs a citation, just cite it. You're rarely going to be penalized for, including a citation when you don't need one. But if you forget it, or you don't include one when you do need one, then that can be construed as plagiarism. All right. So cite the following, direct quotes, of course. Summarizing, maybe you're summarizing an author's idea. Just, you can put your citation in your signal phrase. Dr. Such and such, writes, or Dr. Such and such, discusses this issue, you know, in the fall issue of Scientific American, whatever. All right. So that's you can acknowledge your source in your signal phrase. Okay. So whatever you do, cite it. When in doubt, cite it. Okay. Here's just some example of a claim and some reasons. All right. And think about how you want your paper to look. Okay. Where are you going to place your most interesting or your most compelling reason? Early in the essay, or will you build up to that, in your essay? And both of those strategies have their merits. Okay. You can read this one. This is more about tone. All right. You can go through this one. All right. Now, all right. Once you finish your draft, okay, and if you notice a pattern, with our last two essays, we've done a self-assessment, and we will be doing one. Well, you'll be completing one with your argument essay as well. But even before you get to your self-assessment, when you submit your draft, or before you submit your draft, go back over it. Okay, go back over it and ask yourself: does each paragraph relate back to the main idea? Okay, is there a clear connection between every body paragraph in your essay and your essay's main idea? Okay, there has to be. Every body paragraph in your essay, it exists to serve your thesis statement. Okay, it exists to serve your thesis statement. So just make sure there's a clear connection. Even your counter argument paragraphs, right? They still serve your thesis statement because they're arguing against, you know, some arguing against the point that opposes your claim. All right, so think about that. Does each paragraph relate to the main idea, or do you have paragraphs that need to be cut? Do you have paragraphs that need to be adjusted? Do you have fluff paragraphs? And fluff paragraphs are paragraphs that take up space but don't really say anything. Okay. Or they could be just redundant paragraphs where you're just kind of repeating, the same idea. All right. Where might a reader have trouble following my ideas? Okay. Will they struggle to follow your logic? Could the word choice, be a little bit different? All right. Is it just an awkward sentence construction? Okay. Have someone else read your work. All right. That's a great strategy for, catching points where you may not be clear. Do several of your paragraphs repeat one idea? Meaning, are you saying the same thing throughout your essay? That's a quick way to get your reader to disengage. And this isn't to say that you can't have paragraphs that several paragraphs explaining one idea. That's different. Okay, say there's a point that you're making in your essay and you want to spend several paragraphs, discussing this point. That's one thing, but that's different from having several paragraphs that just say the same thing. All right. Are your paragraphs unified? Meaning, does each paragraph focus only on one idea? All right. And that idea should be in your topic sentence. And then finally, are your paragraphs too long or too short? Okay. Again, early in the semester, I told you all to free yourself from thinking of paragraphs in terms of like a number of sentences, but you can have paragraphs that kind of ramble. All right. So, look back at your paragraphs. Is it too long? Did I go on? Did I just go on here? Did I make my point and keep going? Right. Or do I have multiple paragraphs in this one paragraph? Sometimes a long paragraph is actually 2 or 3 paragraphs that we just jam together. Okay. And same thing, is the paragraph too short? Right? Ask yourself, what does my reader need to know? Okay. How can I develop this idea further? How can I include more detail? Perhaps there's another example I can discuss. Okay. Perhaps there's more evidence, I can bring in to show, the truth of what I'm saying. All right. So, think about these questions and answer them honestly, right? Because, your reader, they're going to be reading your essay, you know, and you don't want them to be distracted, by these issues. All right. And then finally, right, check the connections between sentences and paragraphs. Okay. Use transitions, right? Use transitions to unify your ideas. Okay, or to connect your ideas. Okay. Use those transitions in your topic sentences as well to join, you know, to establish coherence, from paragraph to paragraph. Okay. Check your sentences. Ooh, man. Yeah. Not only are we checking for like run-ons and fragments, but we're checking for clarity of ideas. Okay. Have I presented this material as clearly as possible, or have I communicated this idea as clearly as possible? Am I using the most effective words? Am I using the most effective sentence construction? All right. A great way to catch, those issues I just mentioned is to read your paper out loud. Okay, read it out loud. Have someone else read it. All right, upload it to NetTutor. Okay, but an additional reader can help you out, especially if you've been working on your paper for a long time. Sometimes our eyes just get fatigued, or our brains, get fatigued, and we miss certain things. But I think it's imperative, that we check, sentence by sentence. Okay, it may seem tedious, but it's worth it. Okay, and then eliminate wordiness. Right, I was born in the month of March in the state of Washington in the city of Seattle. All right. When I could just say I was born in March in Seattle. Okay. So try to eliminate unnecessary wordiness. Okay. Your reader will tune out as well. The month of September, due to the fact you can just say because each and every, that's the same thing. Trials and tribulation, that's the same thing as well. All right. So you can just say trials or you can say tribulation. Don't say trials and tribulation. All right. Same thing with each and every. Okay. Same thing. All right. So, think about, how you can have the most substance, all right, in your paper instead of, these phrasings that just take up space but don't say anything. Okay. Grammarly is a great way of eliminating these instances of unnecessary wordiness. Okay. Grammarly is great for that. Okay. I use it all the time to make my writing more concise. Okay. And then, proofread. Proofread. Okay. Typos, misspellings, and forgetting your capitalization, misusing punctuation or not using punctuation at all, that can affect how your audience views your argument. Okay. Why am I going to believe this writer when they constantly misuse the apostrophe? All right. Why would I believe this writer? Okay. When they have a typo in the first line. All right. So, go back over your paper, spend that time going back through it. Okay. It's worth it. All right. It's worth it. Okay. So in essence, proofreading, right? Visualizing your draft, drafting in an organized way. Okay. And then proofreading, it's going to help you get to the promised land, so to speak. All right. And the promised land is finishing this paper and submitting the best paper you can. Okay. Just a few more things I wanted to cover before I wrap up here. Okay. This next PDF that I'm going to look at is called Structuring Arguments. And this is just, putting it together, putting your essay together. Okay. Um, Again, use your proposal. And many of you, which I was pretty impressed by, many of you, on your proposals, you had an introduction or most of an introduction, all right, in the first part of your proposal, which is great. That's going to help you, on this aspect of your essay. And I know many of you, maybe in elementary, middle school, high school, learn like the 5 paragraph method of building an essay: intro, body, 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 conclusion. All right. Our college essays is pretty much the same. It's just that you have more body paragraphs. Okay. That's it. But the function of the intro is still the same. The function of your body paragraphs are still the same. And the function of your conclusion are still the same. But again, like I said, you just will need more body paragraphs. That's it. All right. So now, kind folks, how are you going to start this thing? Okay. How are you going to get started? I'll tell you not how you're not going to get started. Okay. Don't start off with "have you ever." Okay. Have you ever, been texting and driving at the same time? All right. Whatever. All right. One, we're avoiding second person point of view. And then two, if your paper begins "have you ever" and the answer to that question is no, your reader is may disengage from whatever you're talking about. So don't start off with "have you ever." Don't begin with some generic opening, right? Social media, is a popular form of communication today, or popular social media is popular these days. We know it is. Okay. Television, is a common form of entertainment. Of course it is. All right. So don't start off with something generic. Okay. Remember, you're setting the tone, in your introduction. So start with a quote, a short quote. Okay. Start with some provocative statement, some interesting statistic. Okay. Whatever you do, don't use a generic opening that's been used a million times, or definitely don't begin with "have you ever." Okay, have you ever? All right. So your intro sets the tone for your paper. It is where you make your first impression on the reader. That's not 100% true. Okay. Your title is really where you make the first impression. But as far as your paper goes, like getting within your paper, it is your intro. Make sure your intro includes a hook, provide some background on your topic, and present your thesis statement. Your hook, is how you're going to grab their attention. Background, get your reader involved in the discussion. What does your reader need to know to be part of the discussion you're about to have? Okay. Or, maybe there's just some background you need to fill in the blanks, or to like I said, just prepare them. Maybe you just want to reflect if your topic is something that's really in the public consciousness. Maybe you just want to reflect on on what you're writing about. That's fine. But whatever you do, provide some background to get them into the discussion. So really develop your introduction and use it to build up to your thesis statement. And that's the third element you need for a successful introduction. Hook, background, thesis statement. Okay. And then your thesis, man, it's the most important statement in your essay. Okay. When your reader reads your thesis statement, they should know exactly what to expect in your essay. You should prepare them to, you should drop the idea you want them to accept right there in your thesis statement. Okay. Your thesis is the most important sentence in your essay as it clearly states your main claim. Clearly states your main claim. Okay. The emphasis there is clearly. Okay. Clearly. Think of the idea. The idea, okay, typo, after I just, got on you guys about proofreading. Think of the idea you want to convince the reader to accept. Okay. Teachers aren't above error. All right. Now let's see an intro and thesis in action. This argument paragraphs document is on D2L as well. Okay. According to data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in-state tuition and fees for national public universities has increased 296% over the past 20 years. So this essay uses a provocative, an interesting statistic as the attention grabber, because the goal is for your reader to say, wow, college or the price of college went up almost 300% over the last 20 years. Man, let me read further to see the consequence or to see how this happened. All right. So if you begin with some interesting statistic, that's a good way to get your reader, reeled in. All right. Or like I said, you can start with a short quote. Okay, you can start with a short anecdote, and an anecdote is just this. It's a short but relevant story. Short. Okay, I'm talking like no more than 3 or 4 sentences. All right, and you can jam a lot of content into 3 or 4 sentences. All right, so you have your attention grabber there. Now you need some context or some background. How are you going to get your reader involved in that discussion? Okay, one, don't assume your reader knows what you know. Okay, so get them involved, give them some background. You don't want to be too extensive with this because you don't want it to take up your entire first page, of course, but you do want to give your reader enough to where they can be involved in the discussion, or you can contextualize your argument. There was once a time when college was a realistic option for most people in the United States. If one had the aptitude and desire, a college education could be theirs for a relatively cheap price. In fact, a great deal of public universities didn't even charge for classes, as many were driven by the idea that a well-educated society is a better society. Additionally, even if one did not decide to go to college, meaningful employment was readily available. Okay. Background, now transitioning into what the paper is actually about. So this one, it just gave a little bit of background on increasing tuition and the effect. All right, but now we're getting into the main idea. And it's like I said before, we should be building up to the thesis statement. Nowadays, however, a college education is all but necessary to compete in the job market. But the higher cost of education makes many raise the question, is college really worth it? Okay, again, giving the reader something to think about. Many current college students will be thousands of dollars in debt by the time they graduate. To help end overwhelming student debt, the government should set a cap on college tuition. There it is. That's what I want the audience to take away from this paper. Okay. Government should cap college tuition. Tuition shouldn't increase anymore. College should be free if you want to take it there. Whatever. All right. But again, the main idea is clear. And it comes at the end of this introduction paragraph. So again, just to recap, this introduction has, our 3 necessary elements. Hook right here, background is the yellow highlight, and then the thesis statement is the green highlight. Okay, so no matter what you're writing about or no matter the direction you want to take your paper, just make sure you have those 3 elements in your intro. Hook, background or context, and then your thesis statement. Okay, our intro is done. Okay, or our top piece of bread, if you want to look at the sandwich, if you want to use the sandwich analogy. All right, top piece of bread is done. Okay, we buttered it up or whatever whatever we like. If we're making a grilled cheese or something. Personally, like a grilled cheese with veggies, but that's just me. Right. Now, the body of your essay. Okay, this is where your research is going to pay off. This is where your proposal is going to pay off, like those reasons you put in your proposal, that counter argument you put in your proposal. This is where all of that is going to come into play. So your thesis statement tells your reader that something is true or that something should happen. The body shows them why it's true, or it shows them why it should happen. Why? Because it's your reasons and evidence. That's what's going to take them over the top. Okay, that's what's going to get them to accept your claim. All right. So your body paragraphs exist to support your thesis statement. Be sure that each paragraph in the body of your essay is connected to your main claim. Start with the topic sentence and develop it with relevant supporting details. And after that, I have the acronym PIE or PI. PI is just point, information, explanation. And your point is your topic sentence. Information is some kind of example, could be a quote, could be a reference to some research, could, you just could be you just explaining something in a way that's that's logical for your audience, not logical in our own minds, because for the most part everything we write makes sense because it comes from us, but we have to think about we have to put ourselves in our reader's shoes. Will this make sense to them? Okay, will this make sense to them? And we can't say, well, if it doesn't make sense to them, then there's something wrong with them. No, we can't do that as writers. We need to explain things in a way that's clear to our audience, or in a way that makes sense, or we need to bring in evidence, that supports our claims. So that's our information. And then our explanation is our follow-up. Okay. Whether you use a quote or some kind of material from an outside source, always follow that up with your own words. Okay. And never begin or end a body paragraph with a quote. Okay. Never begin or end a body paragraph with a quote. All right. Now let's look at the PI method, or a body paragraph in action. Okay. Consider using the PI method for body paragraphs. Okay, point, topic, sentence, information, example of the idea, your topic, sentence, explanation, your follow-up to your example in your own words. Okay, here it is. Our topic sentence here, you don't have to do this in your own paper. I just did it here for effect, but your topic sentence is underlined, or the topic sentence here is underlined. College is supposed to be the key to a better life. However, many graduates find themselves saddled with debt that can dramatically affect the state of their lives. Okay, now, here's the idea that's going to be discussed in this paragraph, and only this idea. Okay, that's how we keep our paragraphs unified, sticking to the idea in our topic sentence. Okay, so when you're going back over your material, make sure that every sentence has its place, or every sentence can be connected back to your topic sentence. All right, and then your body paragraphs, and specifically your topic sentences, they should be able to connect back to your thesis statement. Okay, now this is our point if we're using the PI method. Here's our information. As previously stated, college tuition has risen drastically within the last 2 decades. As a result, let me just stop here for our transition. Okay, this is a causal transition. All right, as a result, more students are taking out loans to pay for their education, with the corollary being increased debt upon graduation that can severely affect the quality of their lives. Okay, a Gallup poll. Now we're getting into our research. A Gallup poll that surveyed 30,000 graduates in 50 states revealed that about 70% of graduates are in debt, with 21% owing between $25,000 and $50,000. The study also notes that graduates in debt are, quote, less likely to enjoy their work and are less financially and physically fit than their counterparts who graduated without debt, excuse me. Okay, now let's go back up to our topic sentence. debt that can dramatically affect the state of their lives, financially and physically fit, or less financially and physically fit from their debt. So we're remaining consistent throughout this paragraph. All right, and then here's my citation for this source. Okay, and again, just author's last name is fine. Now we're continuing on. One can witness the real-time effect and the panic that can ensue by looking at the case of Kyle McCarthy, a recent graduate working odd jobs to repay $72,000 in student loan debt. In an interview with CNBC, McCarthy laments being on the brink of eviction and is worried that collectors may target his already financially strapped mother. To sum up his despair at the whole ordeal, McCarthy simply says, "I can't get out, you know." And then my citation, and then following it up with your own explanation or your own words. McCarthy is one of many with overwhelming debt preventing upward mobility. Okay. And if you want, maybe a couple more sentences of explanation. All right. Now, let me just go back to our friend Kyle McCarthy. Here's our appeal to logic or logos, if you want to get Latin with it. Okay. The Gallup poll. All right. Well, here's our appeal to pathos, or our emotional appeal. And again, it's balanced with some data. All right. But, Kyle, right, humanizes this issue for your audience. Okay. Lets them put a real person with it. So your audience could say, hey, I know a Kyle McCarthy, or maybe they say, I am Kyle McCarthy. All right. So sprinkled here and there throughout your paper, a little bit of emotional appeal will go over well. So if this paper were to be fully fleshed out, I probably would only use one more example, that shows emotional appeal. All right, because you don't want to rely on that too heavily because, again, a critical reader will be asking or demanding, evidence. Okay, that's cool, but you pull my heartstrings. Now, show me the evidence. Okay. Point, all this information, and then explanation. Okay. Now, our next paragraph. Okay. And this is what I meant before when I asked you to just check to see if all of your paragraphs are connected. Okay. Start off with maybe your topic sentence for your next paragraph utilizes a transition or a transitional phrase. In addition to preventing upward mobility, student loan debt often forces students to consider dropping out of school. Okay. Now, this paragraph would discuss how student loan debt often forces students, to consider dropping out of school. Okay. And it would flesh out, I would flesh it out from there using the same method, point, information, explanation. Okay. So that's a good formula for developing your paragraphs. Okay. Now, well, Professor Norwood, I think that, college tuition is priced just right. Why? Because you get a better quality of education, and a higher quality of education leads to a better job. Okay. That's a viewpoint I would have to respond to if, I was developing a paper about, tuition caps. Okay. Also, well, who's going to pay for this? Right? Are you going to raise my taxes? I would have to address that as well. So what I'm getting at is, what are the most common oppositions to your argument? Now, realistically, we only have 5 pages here, so you aren't going to have the time or the space to address all of the opposition. But what are some of the most common, opposing viewpoints? And then, what's your response to them? A sound argument includes a response to opposing viewpoints. Show your reader that you have analyzed your topic and why they should accept your claim instead of the opposition. Why should I accept your claim instead of, a claim made by the opposition? Okay, think about that. But you do need to acknowledge and reply to the opposition, in any successful argument. But again, like I said, with our papers, they're 5 pages. What did I say, 5 to 7? Okay, 5 to 7 pages. So you don't want to spend, all of your paper addressing the opposition. Okay, but do that somewhere in your paper. Also, think about where it's going to be in your paper. Okay. Think about where that's going to be in your paper. And then finally, get that wrap it up by. Okay. Get on out of there. All right. Just like you don't start off a paper with have you ever, don't end with now you see. Okay. Or now that I have presented my evidence. No, don't end like that. Don't end with in conclusion either. All right. Whatever you're going to say after in conclusion, just start with that. Okay, you don't need to say in conclusion. And truthfully, if your reader should be able to sense when you're wrapping up. Okay. You definitely don't want to present any new ideas in your conclusion. All right. Just wrap it up, you know, get out of there. All right. Leave your reader with some closure. Think about, what you want them to take from your essay. You can even reiterate your main idea. Don't restate it in the same words, of course, but you can reiterate it. You can summarize your paper. If you began with a quote, maybe you revisit that quote in your conclusion, right? Just bring your reader full circle. Okay. I always say, it's the Jerry Springer final thought. All right. So what do you want to leave them with? Okay. What do you want to leave them with? Okay. And then here's an example. Let me look at these mini documents I have. Actually, let me close this. Okay. Now, due to the change in the job market, a college degree is virtually a necessity. In fact, some even argue that the master's degree is the new bachelor's. While a quality education is important, it should enhance a person's life, not become the source of economic distress or cost so much that it prevents capable high school students from thinking that college is even a viable option. As prices continue to increase, it's worrying to think about a future when only the select few will be able to afford college. However, if the problem of inflated tuition isn't addressed in a meaningful way, this could be the impending reality that we will face as a country. If we want to get rid of first person point of view, we can say this is the reality that this country will face. All right. But, you know, make sure you're reiterating that main idea. Okay. High tuition needs to be addressed, needs to be kept, whatever. Okay. So again, just full circle, right? Thesis is here, or main idea is here, and then it's reiterated in my conclusion paragraph. But the main thing, like I said, don't introduce any new content in your conclusion. Okay. So intro, hook, background or context, and thesis, right? Body paragraphs are topic sentence and relevant supporting details, or if you want to use the PI method, point, information, explanation. And then your conclusion, right? Let's wrap it up without presenting any new information. Okay, let's wrap it up. And this document is entitled argument paragraph examples, and it's also in the drafting an argument or drafting an argument proposal, excuse me, module. All right, and then finally, all right, make sure you check out this argument tips handout. Okay, PDF. And same thing with this using sources and avoiding plagiarism documents. Okay. All right. Have a great one, folks. Hopefully the audio came out on this one. All right.